All right, hello everyone. I am back with the next round of Pokemon Battle Redux videos for the Draft League that I'm participating in. We are now in Season 3, and it is back to being a singles season. This season, though, there's a bit of a gimmick where each player was assigned one type at random and then got to draft second type. So it's basically a dual monotype season. We were allowed to choose 10 Pokemon from our types, and otherwise the draft proceeded as most Pokemon drafts do, snake format, between all participants. We have a record number of participants in the league this season, so hopefully I'll be able to do several of these videos. I've already got at least 4 or 5 lined up, so that should be fun. Hopefully I can produce them all pretty well for you guys to see how this is all going. So we'll start off, I guess, describing draft night. I was randomly assigned Steel type, and then and I should say for these types, the random assignments and the second picks were all done so that no type was picked twice in either of those distributions. So I was randomly assigned Steel as my first type. And then I went in trying to think about what would be the best second type to pick. Especially considering that our league sort of uses the Pokemon Showdown and Smogon tiers, but not quite, because we'd have to balance it out. We don't use any of the Mythicals or Legendaries, and we have to have enough in each of our own tiers so that everyone gets a fair number of picks. So because of that, I'd initially thought of picking either Dragon, Water, or Flying as a good complement to Steel, and then discovered that there weren't a lot of good flyers in our top tier that, weren't already legendary or mythical or something. So that kind of dropped out a lot of choices for me. I was relatively lucky. I was able to pick Dragon as my second type. So you can see on these first 2 trainer cards the team of 10 that I ended up drafting. On the Dragon side, I got Hydreigon, Dragolage, Dragonite, Duraludon, and Tyrantrum. And Duraludon's interesting because it also fits my Steel typing. On the Steel side, I got Corviknight, Aegislash, Klefki, Durant, and Togedemaru. You may recognize a couple of these here. I had Corviknight back in Season 1, and I had Togedemaru in Season 2. So those are 2 fun little callbacks for me, or throwbacks. I had been considering before the season started of whether picking Fire or Bug as types, because one of my favorite Pokemon is Volcarona. That was my mascot back in Season 1, but neither Fire nor Bug is a very good synergistically with Steel. But Bug would have been a fun type. I had a plan for how to draft Bug if that was my second type. But I did end up getting Dragon, which I consider myself somewhat lucky for. Because Steel and Dragon are together, I think, a very, very good type combo. Steel is pretty good in monotype formats on its own. Dragon is not. But Steel covers much of what Dragon worries about. And Dragon is resistant to fire, so that's good for Steel in that sense. And a lot of dragons are either flying or, like Hydreigon, have levitate, so that helps out with fighting and ground, particularly ground. Not fighting as much, particularly with Hydreigon. But yeah, so that was the team that I ended up drafting. I was unable to get Ferrothorn. Someone with an electric grass team picked it 1 pick before I was going to pick it. And there were a couple of other dragons that were actually in our lowest tier because they're not necessarily very high on Smogon, but would have worked well in this format. With both Flygon and not Sliggoo, Goodra. But both of those ended up getting picked in a relatively early round, which I was kind of surprised at, and I was unable to grab them. But this is the team I ended up with, and I'm relatively happy with it. There's a lot of setup in my team. Not a lot of support. You've got Dragolage as a specially defensive wall there. Klefki is obviously great for support, and I can do smarter stuff with the other Pokemon that I have here. Anyway, that's my team, and what I'm showing you here on the screen as well are the first 2 opponents that I've had this season. This first video I'm going to feature is against XJ09, and they drafted Ghost and Poison. So just looking at their teams, what are some of the things that I'm personally worried about? Well, you've got Dragapult, very strong special attacker, especially if it walks a choice spec set. You've got Polteageist, which is actually quite a terrifying setup sweeper. Let's see, you've got a nice physical attacker in... oh crap, I'm totally blanking on that Pokemon's name right now. Golurk. There we go. Some 2 ghosts that are only weak to Fairy, and Toxapex is always a threat. And then you've got both Nidos. So Sheer Force Life Orb is potentially a very terrifying set for them. Now, because of the rules of our league, they can't both run Life Orb if he were to use both of those Pokemon in a single battle. So that mitigates my worry somewhat. But in addition to having some of those strong special attackers, these sheer forcers... Oh, and Galarian Corsola can also have some very scary sets. If you've got someone in Season 1 ran Hex, Calm Mind, Will-O-Wisp, and Strength Stat, which is a great set and surprisingly offensive. So another worry to worry about there, but also just generally troublesome to deal with a Galarian Corsola with Eviolite on it. And the other thing that I'm personally noticing, particularly since I have half of my Pokemon in Steel type, he's got some great ground type attackers in here. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about when I'm going to team build for this opponent. So next I'll go in and see what I did. So we're actually going to go from the bottom up here. Down here at the bottom, I've got my Tyrantrum, which is a basic setup attacker here. I've got a Shukaberry to hopefully deal with any ground-type attacks that Tyrantrum gets. Crunch to deal with the ghosts, Play Rough to deal with the ghosts that are only weak to Fairy, and Earthquake to deal with poison types. Pretty straightforward set here. I've got Dragonite, again. Earthquake deals with the poison types, and otherwise this is just a strong attacker. Roost and Dragon Dance to power up, Roost for longevity, and then Outrage just to hit hard. I've got Klefki here, Air Balloon again to protect it from ground. And I've got Light Screen, but I'm not worrying about Light Clay. That will come into some of the battles here. Light Screen is there because, as I mentioned, I'm scared of some of those really strong special attackers. I've got Thunder Wave, hopefully to cripple Dragapult and Polteageist, if those things try to get troublesome. Play Rough again, same reason that Tyrantrum has Play Rough. And this Spikes right here is mostly just a filler move. I didn't really think I could have put a Reflect in there, but having both screens without Light Clay seems a little weird, and I thought Spikes might have been a little bit better because most of my opponent's Pokemon are grounded, and it didn't look like he had a good way to deal with entry hazards. Now, of course, I mentioned putting up entry hazards was an idea of mine. This Dragalage does not run Toxic Spikes. It is instead specially defensive special attacker with Dragon Pulse, Sludge Wave, Scald, and then Flip Turn for a little bit of momentum. Next up, we've got this Hydreigon. It's got Levitate, so it's not worried about ground-type attacks, but I am worried about Ice-type attacks from the Nidos and a couple of others of my opponent's Pokemon. So that's why I've got Yachiberry on this Hydreigon. And then this guy is, again, just kind of set up Nasty Plot, Surf, Earth Power, and Dark Pulse. I think all are relatively self-explanatory. Now, looking back on this set, considering I do have Nasty Plot, I should have run this with a speed boosting nature, not a special attack boosting nature, but that's neither here nor there at this point. And then last but not least is my ace, Corviknight. Now, I was worried about bringing Corviknight in because I wasn't sure, because, you know, Body Press, which was one of my signature moves last time, doesn't really help against ghost types. Brave Bird, kind of nice, but again, not necessarily the best against the team my opponent brought. I discovered the night before this battle that Corviknight gets Power Trip. And it's not something you necessarily notice if you're just using Smokegun's Team Builder, because Power Trip is not in the normal moves list, it's down in the usually useless moves list. So that was just me scanning all of the Pokemon I had, trying to figure out what was another way to really try to get into and get around some of my opponent's threats. But between Bulk Up and Agility, I can really power this up. I'm running Bulk Up instead of Iron Defense because Power Trip is a physical attack here. So actually having the attack boost from Bulk Up helps, better than just the double defense boost that Iron Defense would give. And then I've got Agility here just to kind of make sure, if I can, outspeed some of my opponent's threats. Particularly with that, Dragalage there, or Polteageist. And to deal with those special attackers, I've got a max specially defensive thing, because I'm boosting my speed, I'm boosting my defense. I can worry about special defense and really just tank the special attack. So that is the team build that I use going into these battles. Alright, and here we go with battle number 1. So we'll start off, it's Sableye versus Tyrantrum. Now, of course, Sableye, one of the things you really have to worry about is Will-O-Wisp. It's one of the, especially because Sableye has Prankster, all these non-damaging moves get the priority. So my thought here is, alright, I'm probably going to get burned. Dragon Dance isn't necessarily going to help me. I'd have to use it at least 3 times to overcome the burn. So what I start off with here is just coming in straight in with a Play Rough. And Will-O-Wisp does happen. Play Rough does come in. It does an okay amount of damage, not a ton. And I think I go in with an... Okay, yeah. After that, I tried to... wasn't sure what to do next. Because Will-O-Wisp got me down to do 37 damage, I wasn't going to kill it with the next move, so that's why I tried to set up with Dragon Dance. He uses the opportunity to switch. And so my thought coming in now is, alright, let me just try to hit it with Earthquake and see what happens. He does another switch. Oh, no, sorry, I wasn't thinking Earthquake there. Another Dragon Dance. Alright. Here comes in with a Crunch. Now that I've got enough attack to undo the burn, but Corsola's Strength Sap comes in. So right now, I have to think of something else to do to get around this Corsola. I believe what I do next here is I think I switch into the Hydreigon. Let's see. Yes, I do. So here I'm going to start trying to set up, because Hydreigon does not have to worry about Strength Sap. So I believe I start trying to set up with a Nasty Plot here on the next turn. That's exactly what happens. He does the switch. He's hoping to totally get neutral. He gets the Will-O-Wisp off, but he forgets that Dark types are immune to Prankster moves. So I get Dark Pulse and take out Sableye. So there's first blood. Now Dragapult here, I was worried about, again, I'm worried about Dragapult being special attacker, especially if it's Choice Specs, or even Choice Scarps. Those attacks will hit much. So I'm worried about a Draco Meteor coming in. And that's why I switch into Klefki. Now, I don't get Draco Meteor, I get Dragon Darts, which is interesting. I use the free move there to put up 1 row of spikes, and I'm anticipating Shell Smash, so I put Thunder Wave in. And next up, I will register a Light Screen, because I want to start protecting against Stored Power. Stored Power is the scary thing that this Polteageist has. Now, my Hydreigon doesn't have to worry about that, but even Hydreigon might have to worry about a really strong boosted Shadow Ball or something to that effect. But I've seen this Polteageist in action in someone else's battle, and Stored Power is terrifying. And even when Polteageist is paralyzed, it's terrifying because it just has to do another Shell Smash, and it's probably going to outspeed a lot. So I get the Light Screen off, my opponent gets off the other Shell Smash, and my choice here is to switch to either Hydreigon or Corviknight, and I pick Corviknight here. I'm banking on the Light Screen and my specially defensive Corviknight helping me. Now, he's using Hex and not a Shadow Ball, which I find kind of interesting. I guess the Hex is depending on Corsola and Sableye to spread burns, which makes kind of sense, but having it on separate Pokemon, a little bit risky, and he kind of ran into that. You trying to use Hex against Corviknight there. So right now, I know my Corviknight had no speed investment, so I believe I use agility on this next turn. But from here on out, I'm mostly just trying to set up. So stored power comes in. It does 44%. Even though I'm resistant, even though I'm specially defensive, even though I've got light screen up, stored power does 44%. Now, I can keep using Roost to get around that, but if I don't time things properly and he gets another Shell Smash off, then I'm really in trouble, especially once this light screen goes away. Because 44% with light screen means 88% without, and I can't Roost past 88% damage per turn. I think I get lucky on this next turn with a paralysis. Yes, I do. So here, that lets me get the Roost off safely, and I get a bulk up to start setting up a little bit more. Stored power comes in, and I think this is when light screen goes away, so I just have to go for it now. Power Trip. Kills it, but now I'm disabled. So I'm basically now forced to continue doing setup stuff and hopefully predict things. And he was expecting a Roost there, which I didn't do. So that was lucky on my part, and so now I do get the Roost off, and I resist Ice Beam. So things are looking relatively good here at this point. I think we'll just go to the faster speed now. Because at this point, I do basically start sweeping. I do get another agility off because I'm worried about the Dragapult. Aside from that, though, we're going to just start power tripping away the rest of my opponent's stuff. 2, and I think he gets a Sucker Punch, yep, but it's still 3. And then 4 with Golurk. So yeah, he's walled by that. And again, I only discovered the set the night before this battle. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now my worry coming into the next battle is he's going to be thinking about this Corviknight set. So I can't necessarily go into it as quickly as I did. And I know in this battle, when he set up with Polteageist, I chose Corviknight instead of Hydreigon, which is now my thought going into the next battle. Let's see, in the first battle, I started off with the Tyrantrum, which I did predict because Sableye was coming out to begin with. So that was a relatively good choice to start with. And I think in this battle, I start off with Dragalage. Let's not do that because I'm going to be starting and stopping, and then I'll just end up starting and stopping the music. All right, so he's trying to come out now with Polteageist right off the bat. I assume he's going to try to start setting up as quickly as possible, which in my mind means let me try to use adaptability and get rid of this Polteageist as quickly as I can. It does try the Shell Smash right off the bat. I think I do Dragon Pulse. Oh, I do Flip Turn. That's right. Never mind. That's right, because I want to get the... I want to paralyze it. And it's probably going to do another... Uses Hex. Okay, yeah, because I don't resist Ghost-type moves there. I get the Light Screen off. Gets the other Shell Smash off. So now I'm kind of in trouble, because Klefki doesn't really have good attacks. I've got Plague Rough. It doesn't help much. Here's Hydreigon. And I do just completely scare it out. I get my nasty plot set up, get a kill off there. All right, now here's a point where I was dumb in this fight. If you remember the last fight, I was expecting Draco Meteor and got Dragon Darts instead. Did I learn? I did not. So that was not a great move on my part. I could have predicted, even if I was whatever I was thinking, I could have sent Klefki out again. I might have been worried about a flamethrower prediction because I had done the swap last time. But either way, there goes my specialing attacking levitating dragon. Alright, so now what am I going to do next here? I think I do send out Klefki at this point. No, Corviknight, that's right. Because it's physical attacking. I can, in theory, set up with Corviknight. In theory. Now you'll notice I've been running pressure here instead of mirror armor, and that's actually going to be important in 2 separate ways later in this battle. Normally, mirror armor is the better move, and that actually does factor in here. This battle probably would have been over quicker if I had been running mirror armor instead of pressure. But we'll get to that. So here comes Sableye. I think I switch here because I don't want to get burned. Oh, okay, so I keep coming in, but I can't use bulk up. And so here I switch, worried about the burn, and there it comes. At this point, I think, is when I go on offense with Dragalage. Hex does not do much, because I am specially defensive with an Assault Vest. Dragon Pulse does a ton. It does a swap, but Polteageist is paralyzed, so this is basically just a sacrifice at this point. I get another Dragon Pulse off. Polteageist goes down. There's that threat gone. Nidoqueen comes out. Worried about Earth Power or Ice Beam? I'm surprised they didn't use Earth Power. They might have been expecting me to swap to one of my flyers. Actually, particularly with Ice Beam, I bet he was expecting Dragonite. But he used Ice Beam instead, and because Nidoqueen did not get stabbed, I survive, and I get a Scald off. Does a fair amount of damage and gets a burn. Doesn't make the kill. I think I sack Dragalage after this. Yes. Lets me get in the free swap. And at this point, I try to start setting... Oh, yeah, I get Nidoqueen out of the way. And here comes... Alright. The rest of this battle is going to be largely a fight of setup versus strength sap. And so as I mentioned earlier, with my Corviknight, I was running pressure instead of mirror armor. Mirror armor would have helped a bit with dealing with strength sap. Now, what I'm worried about here, if we know the Dragonite had heavy-duty boots, it does not have a lum barrier or anything, so it's going to get burned. My thought at this point is to try to Dragon Dance up to the point to overcome the burn and see what my opponent does. If they're continuously using Strength Sap, then Dragon Dance doesn't work. But I'm just trying things out. And we're going to actually start moving quickly here because it's going to take a while. So they've got the Will-O-Wisp, they've got the Strength Sap. They also have Nightshade. And between the burn damage and Nightshade, my roosts can heal faster. So that's why we get into this long cycle of me trying to time my roosts and Dragon Dances such that I can overcome the burn penalty. At one point in here, you'll see me actually take my chance and use an Earthquake to test the waters. It won't do much, but it does give me an idea of the damage output that I'm dealing with in this kind of stalemate that we're setting up here. And eventually, in fact, we're actually going to go to hyperfast here. Eventually, once I get the sense of how much damage Earthquake does and how much I can do, I'm going to think of trying to do Outrage and 2HK-ing Corsola, assuming I time it so that they don't use Strength Sap on the turn that I use Outrage. So it's a lot of kind of predictions, and he's mostly winning the prediction fight here, I would say. Because he's not letting me get significantly above 2 times attack, with the Nightshade doing damage to force me to roost. And my opponent at a later point did say it was entertaining watching Dragonite struggle to stay alive. So there's the Earthquake I mentioned before. It does about a third, so that gives me a sense, with my 2.5 attack bonus and not stab, with a 100 power move, I do a third. So if I can get this a little bit, if I can hit 3 and do Outrage, which has stab and is 20 points stronger, I could get a 2HKO. So let's see, we're at turn 36 now. I believe my attempts to get through happens pretty soon. Yes, right there. So there's Outrage. It does 60% damage, exactly what I want. I'm going to kill it next turn. I'm going to kill something. I end up killing the Sableye, and then Dragonite succumbs to its burn. Now we get into a very similar situation with my Corviknight trying to set up and get ready for Power Trip. As I said, it's a very similar setup, so it's going to take a while. I'll spare you guys the length of the stuff. Try to go hyper fast here. It does end up working relatively well. You can see Power Trip didn't do a ton, so I have to set up more. The nice thing about the way this works is Bulk Up boosts both attack and defense. Strength Sap only kills attack. So I'm, on balance, getting more and more Power Trip boosts. Um, so I'm slowly trying to power up here. And of course, you can see I get disabled a couple of times. I lose out on the power trip for a while. It actually just forces me to keep bulking up. And there's Corsola using Stealth Rock. I think at this point, pressure actually mattered because it started running out of stuff. Now, between bulk up and agility and roost, I would have stalled them out anyway. Pressure just kind of helped. And it wasn't intentional because in all of my other battles, I end up using mirror armor instead of pressure, and that was the intent. There actually is a clause in our league's rules that pressure stalling can get you penalties. We also know toxic stalling will get you penalties because those are deemed relatively negative playstyles, and we don't want those playstyles in the league. But yeah, that ended up being a 58 turn slog. Again, probably would have done better if I had been running, mirror armor so I'm not losing attack each time the strengths happen. Power Trip being a physical attack likes the attack boost, especially since I'm burned. But yeah, those are those battles. How long was that Corsola keeping me busy with both Dragonite and Corviknight? So that was, I think, back on like turn 18. So yes, there goes Dragolage, and then Dragonite kills Nidoqueen. That was turn 17. So from turn 18 to turn 58, I was mostly just dealing with that damn Corsola. It's a troublesome little thing, and it's fun if you're using it. And I've actually used Galarian Corsola in some of my 1v1 ladders, so I do like it quite a lot. Again, it's kind of frustrating to deal with if you're on the opposite side. And a lot of people say that about my Corviknight as well, both in Season 1 and through the first battle of this season. And you'll see my Corviknight appear a couple times as well. If you remember back in Season 1, I usually liked running it with Body Press and Brave Bird. Obviously now I've discovered the option of Power Trip. So it's giving me a little bit more options to work with Corviknight. So yeah, you'll see that popping up again. I hope you guys enjoyed these battle breakdowns, and I will see you later. Bye.